Welcome to Frap Rap. I'm your host, Aaron Goldman, aka AG, the artist formerly known on AOL Instant Messenger as GDogg with 8 Gs. Yes, 1 through 7 were taken. 25 years ago, I was an AE at an ad network called L90, and my biggest client was Starcom IP. Every Thursday, I'd invite everyone in Chicago at 35 West Wacker to meet me at the Cozy across the street for coffee. And for each person that came, I'd do a freestyle rap about them. Hence the name, Frap Rap. Each episode, I track down another OG IPer to reminisce about the good old days and see what they're up to now. And boy, do we have a good one today. My guest is Erin Vogel. Erin, welcome to Frap Rap.
Thank you for having me. I
Well,
am nervous and excited.
this is gonna be so much fun, and I knew I had to have you on early. So we kicked off with Marshall to kind of get the grounding story, but you're like the heart and soul of IP, and so I can't wait to unpack it all with you. Where are you at the moment? Where are you like physically?
I am physically in Chicago, in my living room.
All right, and I can see we got the, is that the Chicago flag or the stars of the Chicago flag behind you, or just
That
random red
is
stars?
that is actually a former IPer's husband's artwork. That's
No kidding.
Hooper.
All right, well, shout it out.
That's Hooper's husband. That's Blake's. Some of Blake's work.
Very cool. All right, well, we'll have to get Hooper on to talk about the origin story of the artwork, but more importantly, her connections into the IP world. All right, so yeah, definitely want to like catch up on life and all of that stuff, but like let's start all the way back to the beginning of your time at IP. So when would that have been, and what was your role when you started?
I started officially in Starcom IP in 2000. I came in, I think we were called just associates. I think we are just called associates back then.
That was before like the IC role was like the entry point, right?
It was before IC was an entry point.
Yeah.
I came in a group about 10 of us, so we were like employees 10 through 20. I was an intern in 1999, and back then, if you were a good intern, you were offered a job. And then the way they have said it is we got the IP picked the best of the interns, and Rashad pulled us out, and day one I found out I was an IP.
Who else was part of that class with you? Do you remember some of the others?
Yeah, that class, it was a Gresham, Carrie, Nicole Haygood, Lily. Sunil came, he traveled for the summer, so he came a little bit later. Brian Johnson, Andrew
Roger.
Durr. I feel like I'm forgetting someone, but yeah, we were all
Some all
picked up in the
stars.
lobby and brought up to 13, 14.
Unbelievable. You've
Oh,
been
Courtney
called by
Lee. Can't
other.
forget Courtney.
Oh, Courtney. Yeah. Lee Cortini. She'll be on soon. We got
Yeah.
her scheduled, and G Hammy's coming on soon too. So, but my hope is to make it through everyone. And as the you've been called the IP historian. I guess first, do you accept that claim?
I do accept that claim.
Okay, cool. And I know you've saved a lot of stuff, and I'm going to need to pick your brain. I think you've got like, so I have my org chart, but mine is actually I have a few of them. I'll hold it up so those watching on YouTube can see, and it's got like at the very bottom like a little date. I don't know if the camera's going to focus enough to show that. I have one that was updated March 2005, one from June 2005, and one from August 2005. So I think what happened was towards the end of my time, that would have been like after Max Online was bought by IAC. I won Ask Jeeves. At the end of my run at Ask Jeeves, when I packed up and went to Resolution, I think I just took these off the bulletin board with me. So that would have been that timing. But like these org charts, you're actually, yeah, you're still on here at this point. You hadn't moved into Pixel, and we can talk about what that became in a minute. Hopefully, you've got something that goes back even older than that, because my memory is only so good. So, what have you saved from that time?
I feel it would be really funny to call some of these. What I think is not the original, because the group I came in with was like employee 10 through 20, and the group had been around for a hot minute. I have one that's only this long, and very few people even have cell phones listed because we didn't
Oh,
have
wow.
them. So
Now, how many of those do you think are still at? Because like this was back before like your number was permanent with you and moved forever. How many of those do you still think are valid?
I think it'd be really funny to call them and see. Maybe we'll do a bonus episode later and just sit and call everyone.
Ooh, I love that. So, our speed round's called the apartment crawl, and I feel like after we do a couple of the speed rounds, we should just dial a couple folks and ask if we can come over.
I got Marshalls. Let's see if Marshalls works still.
Do you remember the first account you worked on?
I do. I had a couple because when I came in, I was on a team. There's three of us, and I had Guinness World Records, the book, Keebler. I think I went on to Lego a little bit later. Sony was coming out with a product well ahead of its time called Screen Blast, which essentially was an early version of Canva and a video editing tool when no one had the means to upload videos and computers strong enough to do it. So Screen Blast was one of them. Um, I think
That's
those were the
well.
first couple.
Do you remember for Lego, when I was at L90, we represented Alfie.com and we did like a Lego sponsorship. Alfie was like this weird make-believe playland for kids. And so we did this like Lego takeover on there. I don't remember anything further than that, but I just remember pitching you Alfie.com for Lego. Does that ring any kind of bell?
It does. And back
Because
then, literally anything was for sale. We could make the Guinness World Records. We made full screen shake for like the spinning of browsers would spin to represent breakdancing, and it was an executable file in the middle of a banner, and we could just do that.
unbelievable. All right, so here's something else I've got, and I'll hold this up. This is your business card.
Ah,
And
that'll
interestingly enough, so I used to write notes at the bottom. This was before we had like Salesforce, right? So you would keep, a business card like in a Rolodex. And then at the bottom, I wrote notes and it says Guinness World Records met with BP 913 at Starcom. I didn't put the year on there, but apparently I met you September 13th with BP. Do you remember who BP would have been that I worked with? This would be super bonus points if you get that one.
is that Piggott?
Yeah, there you go, Brad Piggott. Well done. Nice pull. So yes, and then I also have on the other side of the card, Sarah Lee Direct and Keebler. So I must have met you pretty early on when you were on some of those initial
Yeah.
accounts. I mean, I started L90 July of 2000. And I told this story in the Marshall episode, but like my two choices coming out of school were Starcom for 27 grand was the offer, or L90, same dollar amount, 27 grand. And so the money was an issue. My dream, I went to school for advertising. My dream was always work for Leo Burnett. Like what, that's all they tell you in school. Like that's especially in the Chicago area, that's where you want to go. And but Starcom couldn't guarantee. I knew I wanted to go into internet and online, and they couldn't guarantee. They said I got to do a pit rotation, yada yada. So I said, well, I'm gonna take the sure thing. L90 is going to be online advertising. I can build my career there. But who knows? We could have been teammates, but instead I was on the other side of the aisle. You and the 10 All Stars get placed into. Was it called IP at the time, or was it called something else?
It's called Starcom IP.
Okay. And
Um,
did they like, how did you get like trained up on it, or was it just sort of seat of your pants, learn as you go?
when I got there, there's probably 15 people there, so you already had your Jeffs, your PJs. Jason Taylor had started, Steve Governelli, Shelby was there, Chandra Panley. Um, so you had a group by years. Sunil came with us. You had Navarro, Hillary. A lot of folks had come up through Leo Burnett Media or Starcom, and they kind of got plucked into the digital space too. By age, we're only 4 years apart for the most part on average. But by experience and level, they kind of started to establish practices from traditional media, but it was make it up as we go. We
Mhm.
literally were making up everything and anything when we realized we need it, which then led to like an IC role being needed for reconciling billing and trafficking and tagging, and all of the ops side of it didn't exist for the first year.
Yeah, it's a great call out. I mean, and it wasn't just you, of course. Like the whole industry was basically like, let's replicate traditional media into this new world, and then you realize, okay, wait, it operates a little differently. We need to optimize for it, and so. as you grew, as IP grew, and it sort of took on a life of its own, structure of its own, um, you would still, of course, have to work with Starcom proper, right? And so
Yep.
the traditional media folks. So like, what was that like? Did you feel like you were always sort of educating them? Did you get pulled into like a lot of new business because you were like the person who understood this newfangled web thing?
Yeah, I think what was great about being part of what became Starcom from Overnet Media and part of like the 35 West Whacker of it all was, and the headquarters was Chicago. We had the access of everything that existed there. So we had the same trainings, we were in the same pit classes, we were in the same kind of basics and fundamentals of media. Like I was talking with someone as we were hearing about your new podcast, the fact that we graduated, most of us, without a media wasn't something that was like a core class. So when we got our job, we didn't know what media necessarily was. So I think you got that piece of it and kind of that power of the huge machine that became Leo Burnett and Starcom. But then we had the permission to create and learn and educate and kind of present it back. So it was a little bit of a crossover, but we knew we had to stay close to everyone because that's where the client relationships were. That's where um, the foundational media plan was, and we were the ones brought in to help convince them to switch it over to digital.
Yeah, I mean, and some of those same principles, like the consumer insight, like just need, that of course carries over. And we can also fast forward today, but I won't rush this too much. But now with AI and everything, and it'll be interesting to talk with your progression, going through like creative roles and such. Like there's technology changes, but some of the core
Yeah.
principles really stay the same. So actually, maybe let's go there. So talk about your progression. At what point did you move off of like the main body of the org chart to then all of a sudden down at the bottom into this thing called Pixel? What was that? And yeah, actually, let's see that. What was that all about?
Yeah, I think it was about 5 years in. Um, what Rashad and Jeff and Tim were great at was we did go out and get our own clients, and by that point there was probably a couple more satellite offices from other big holding companies that started to open up in Chicago, and we at the time had won the largest online account, which was Network Solutions. So
That's all.
we had won that in probably about 2004. The client called, the story as I remember it, the client called and said, "What do you mean you don't have anyone on staff that can change my banner or update pricing?" And Rashad said, "We will tomorrow." And that's when we brought on the Nick Yeckis, the John Raffertys. And within Starcom IP, we had this kind of hybrid that could code and develop and make some of those quick updates. And then we quickly realized that the big ad agencies didn't understand digital, and the big digital agencies, like back then it was AKQA and some of those big agencies, they didn't want to do the small space of digital advertising and marketing if it didn't come with 1,000-page websites and shoppable and some of those pieces. So started to carve out this opportunity, and because we knew we could literally build anything and run it, and we got to like the Lego example, we had Spybotics was one of their campaigns of remote control cars, and we had them driving across websites. And with networks, we could drive across hundreds of websites with them. Out like before rich media existed, before the word Shashkalis was ever uttered, we were just making these ad campaigns, and we were making creative. And then eventually, um, Jeff, Jen Schreiber, Yeki, Rafferty um, spun it off into IP Pixel. And I kind of stayed on the IP side and was the bridge and conduit to a lot of clients that became the first Pixel clients. So I would hear Sarah Lee doesn't have anyone doing a website. Facebook had tabs for brands back then. I would be like, hey, we can do that, and would bring in Yeki and Schreiber to do their dog and pony show. And then after about 18 months, I was like, I don't want to be that person. I want to be in that room with you guys. And we made it happen. So about 2005, Starcom IP started to roll into Starcom proper. And then I headed with Schreiber and Jeff over to IP Pixel.
And was it literally like a room over in the corner on the same floor, or what was the setup for
Yep.
Pixel? Yeah.
Once Starcom IP was integrated into Starcom, and Starcom IP name kind of just became Starcom, we had our own floor. Um, and it was a half floor. We sat down on three right above Catch 35, the seafood restaurant for anyone not from Chicago that would come wafting through the floors. Um, and
And what was
then
the to-go play? Catch and carry, right? That was
Catch and
the
Carry was
yeah,
around the corner.
yeah.
And then eventually um, we got moved to a Misfit Toys floor where all the startup groups that had two or three people kind of all sat together.
And at some point, that was the next stop, Liquid Thread. And what was that
Yep. So
about?
after Pixel, which was essentially a small space creative. By the end of it, we were building websites. We had developers, we had designers, we had some of the best developers and coders that have gone on to amazing roles. And we were pitching websites, we were pitching apps, we were pitching games for clients. Um, Laura Desmond was CEO of what was Starcom Media Vest Group, and she came and said, I have three groups that are doing branded content with Starcom Entertainment, which was more integrations into movies, concerts, IP. MediaVest had a group called Connective Tissue, and then we had Pixel. And she said, I need you all three to come together, come up with a name, come up with a brand, and then sit in one team, and then we're going to take it global. So that was the birth of LiquidThread in
And what was your
2000.
role within that?
So for a while, we sat as the digital part of the branded entertainment, and then started to do the cross training of folks that grew up in like the lower Caracoli development world, show development, showrunners with the digital coders and designers and developers, and started to bridge that gap on some accounts.
And what was your role personally? Were you like running that
Oh,
group or?
I was by then I think I would have been maybe a
Okay.
VP to SVP, I think, in LiquidThread.
And chronology
So
wise, I mean, are we up to like 2010 at this point?
I kind of went in 5 year up until LiquidThread. So every 5 years, I kind of, which was the fun part, I got a new email, I got a new business card, but stayed in the same elevator bank, sometimes a new floor. So it was something new every 5 years. So it was Starcom IP, then it was Pixel, then about 2010 was the launch of LiquidThread.
Okay, and spoiler alert, for those who don't know, we're gonna get up to like 25, 26 years later, and you're still with the group, which is incredible. And by the way, do all those email addresses still work? Do they redirect? Like if someone hits you at ippixel.com?
Up until last fall, they would have.
Okay.
And then I had to do a full reset on all my emails, so it was a
That must
lot.
have been like a nice purge. You stopped getting some of like the newsletters you signed up for in like
It
2001.
when they yeah they were developer newsletters. I was joking. I had not seen a zero inbox in maybe ever, so that was nice for a little while.
That's wild. Okay, so we're 2010-ish with Liquid Thread. What came next from there?
Similar merry-go-round. LiquidThread moved from the center, where it was service to all of the agencies, to re-embedded back into the media companies. So I had been attached to Starcom my whole career at that point. I followed, um, Jeff had moved on. Jeff had been my boss for about 8 years there. I had moved over with Eric Levin, who was over at Spark with Chris Booth. Shelby had gone over Starlink at the time, and then Spark. So I joined Spark in 2015, to join Eric's team doing content and branded content, but as a Spark content person.
And was that still in the building, or at that point was that across the street?
Those were the 3 years I was outside of 35 West Wacker. So I
Okay.
moved over to the merchandise mart, and then they eventually moved us all back into 35 West Wacker. So
Okay. Got it. And shout out to Shelby. Now here, she have you beat? Did she start at IP before you did?
she did. There's about 10 folks that were before my class.
Okay. Anyone else besides Shelby who's still with the group that's been there as long as the two of you? Any original IPers?
Lily is still there.
Oh wow.
My org chart, I stopped doing it, but it has there's a lot of boomerangs, like where you two tours of duty, how many different companies. Um,
We should, by the way, well, it has people's cell phone numbers on there, so maybe we can obscure it. But it would
well,
be awesome to like get a version of that we could post. I don't know. This is a new show. I don't know if we do like show notes or have a website for it, but it'd be cool to show that.
I think Chandra and Becky are still in the group somewhere,
Okay.
like in a global
And what
role
the
and
Lily
centralized
was
role.
Chakrabarti?
Yep,
Okay. Yeah, yeah. At some point, she went to New York, okay,
yeah,
we can. Okay. Okay. All right. So you're in the top five in terms of original IPers still tenured with the group. Is that
yep.
fair statement?
It is.
Okay. So what do you think? I want two-part question. One, what's kept you there all this time? And two, every 5 years you were sort of tapped to help build the next new thing. What made you kind of uniquely qualified to do that?
I don't. I Part of it was asking for it and wanting to be a part of it, and the curiosity of it. I think I always came up through like looking back through a lens of, and it's a very biased opinion, but team sports and working in service industry are very strong kind of character growth development for what you would become if you go into a career in like a 9 to 5 role. Um, so I could kind of was always questioning authority and breaking things and wanting to be a part of that, and had demonstrated converting it into real business dollars, and uh, whether it was my charm and my smart strategic ways, or wearing people down, um, would do amazing things. Would really look at the collaboration and the team part of it. I think early on, Rashad and Shelby had kind of instilled the philosophy of you'll get promoted when the people underneath you are promotable, and you
Mm.
kind of had this feeling of it's not just your individual contributions or what you're doing. You have to be a part of something, and you have to kind of bring the team up together. Um, and I think I just curiosity, and I probably would have left if I stayed in the same role for forever, because I would have got bored. I would have wanted new challenges. So it was kind of a way to stay connected and build on what I had, but still be challenged.
And you still feel that way today? You're still feeling challenged? I mean, do you have another 25 in you?
I hope to be retired at some point, but I did stay at the agency side for this long, so maybe I'll stick around a little longer than retirement age.
What does
Um,
Rashad call all you, the agency folks? Cockroaches, right?
yep.
In in a
I'm
good
gonna
way.
be.
For those who don't
I
know the
like
reference, it's a good
I like
characteristic.
Han Solo and Carbon versus cockroaches. Um, so Spark I was at for 10 years, and that was the longest. And I have just recently been reunited with Shelby and came back into Starcom. And the reason, your first question of the reason I stayed, is because of the fundamental belief that there is a different way to do things and a better way to do things. And there's still, and Publicis, now Publicis, um, gave that ability to do it and gave that permission to do it. And I still think there's a lot of fun work to do. And I like multiple clients. I like different teams. I like the uh, access to the Fortune 50 clients I get to work on, all the way down to really small ones. So, yeah.
Right on. So yes, so you mentioned now you're kind of back in Starcom proper. What's the current role and remit?
I am in a to be defined role, but I am from content, more experience design, experience planning, and strategy, but working very closely with um, the content team and Dana, who runs the content team at Starcom. So helping her team as it grows, and then helping some accounts think about how to do their plans a little bit differently and give some value to the stories we can tell with our media partners that are opening up their studios to brands.
That's awesome. And in some ways, that's the full circle moment,
It
right?
is
Coming, you
full
know,
circle.
it's about storytelling. It's about connecting brands with their audiences and consumers. And the palettes have changed, the tech has changed, the process has changed. In most cases, the people has changed, not necessarily in yours. But at the end of the day, that's still the challenge we're trying to solve.
Still the same foundations.
Yeah. What's your favorite memory? Let's do both from the IP. Well, yeah, favorite memory from the IP days. Yeah.
Um, there's stories that I can tell and stories I can't. I think one of my favorite memories was very early on, and I'm gonna show it because I still have it. This is from March 14th of 2002. Um, we, Sunil, Amanda, G Hammy, and myself were out one night because we would work till 10 o'clock. We would go out till 2 o'clock and then we'd get up and do it again. We created what became the Shots card and the game Shots. And it was I went home that night and I wrote it up, designed it, and printed it. And it is, see if it focuses, the trifecta rules. It's a little horse racing. Amanda was from the Louisville area. And we built it because we realized we were all hanging out together and we talked about work a lot. And we started to hear from our college roommates or our friends that would come hang out, like, I can't hang out with you guys because all you do is talk about work. So we have 10 rules and then some footnotes on the back. If you talk about work, if you make any puns using cookies, sticky, surf, if you answer webmail from the bar, if you tell a funny story that isn't funny about work, if you mention words like proposal, RFP, IO, someone could call shots. And in that moment, you had to go buy a shot and do a shot, or the next opportunity that you had to do a shot, you had to do a shot. And then the trifecta would chip in money, be encouraged to do it with you if you couldn't afford it because that $27,000 salary was real. Um, but yeah, we have the original the original card.
And did you have to have the card out at the bar with you to call someone on it, or it just because were there certain
Nope.
people like who were the sheriffs of the game who could pull the card, or it just went
The
without
tr-
saying?
the trifecta was myself, Sunil, and G Hammy. We got to
Okay.
vote if it was shots worthy, and we'd have three, so we could have a tiebreaker. Um, Majority vote. If we would have brought this card out everywhere, I don't think I'd still have it. Um, but the legacy lives on because as recent as last week, someone called shots on me. So it is still in the lore. It is still amongst the friends from that time, 25 years later.
Incredible. And another one, yes, that's, I think we could all take that to heart because that still happens a lot. And I'm not sure when this will air, but some of us will be in Cannes and, doing it over rosé, but it'll be important to remember too that we need to catch up on lives and other things. Although now, of course, the world's a little different, and it is only once or twice a year we get together with these people, as opposed to back in the day, it literally was every single night. We'd end up at somewhere like Friar Tuck's doing karaoke or
Prior Tux.
the shot ski. You remember the shot ski at Tuck's that would come out?
There was also the sheep. You remember the
Oh
sheep?
yes. Yes, that was another alternate shot position. Um, if you know, you know. Okay, so we haven't aired as of the time that we're talking. We haven't aired Marshall's episode yet, so you don't have the benefit of knowing what he said. At some point, I'm trying to get like a few in the can before we launch the show, so that we know we have like an actual show here, and then we'll release it. At some point, everyone will be able to listen to the one that came before they come on. But you don't have that benefit. So I talked to Marshall, and he brought up one of his memories was from Life's Too Short, and you probably know
Oh,
where I'm going with this. And the question was, I had a memory fart, and I thought that you were one of the people who jumped in the river. And he
I
said, no,
was.
no, it was two others. Oh, was it you?
Yeah.
Ah, yes. All right, great. I'm gonna run down the street and claim that with Jeff. He named two other people. Were there two others that also did it?
Dan Buchacher did.
Yep.
I think he was the first one.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else jumped from the bridge itself. And this might have been 2 different years.
Okay.
Kiki jumped in off the dock,
That's what. Okay. So he named Kiki and
and
and Dan. Yeah. Okay.
there might have been one more person.
And how nasty was that water?
So my story was even worse, or maybe better. Did he give the story of how it came to be?
Yeah, was it Kugel who was doing the like bet? How much would it take to get
How
you
much would it
to?
take? What the day it happened was back then on Leo Burnett's birthday, you would get handed cash for whatever the equivalent of his birthday was. And then the second half of the day, the teams would go out and have their team outings. We all had, again, we talked about our associate salaries. We had $70 of cash in our pocket. And then Kugel started to say, like, how much would it take to get someone to jump off that bridge? And everyone threw their 70, Rashad threw his $70 in. And it became like this wad. And mine got up so high, other people started offering to do it for less. So I was like, time out, nope, stop that dollar amount. This is mine. So I went up there, Buchacher, Nicole Haygood helped me. And if you've ever seen the river in Chicago and the bridges, the bars are about 4.5, 5 feet. So I needed a little jump boost up to get over it. So I'm standing in the middle. Dan's coaching me to jump straight. Don't lean forward. Don't, you look down. It is stories high. It's way higher than you think. And then all of a sudden, I have a spotlight on me, and a barge, which goes 3 miles an hour, is coming through. And they have a spotlight up on me, and there's nothing I can do. The only way off this bridge at this point is like foot over foot for like 30 yards or wait it out.
And to be clear,
And
the spotlight was like warning, don't jump, not like let's make sure all your friends can see you clearly.
it was, don't jump, and are you going to hurt yourself, and why are you jumping?
Yeah.
Um, so I had the benefit, and at that point, Nicole and Dan, I found out later, had a plan if a cop pulled up that they were going to act like Nicole's purse was stolen to distract them. So I had the benefit of a barge clearing out all of at least the debris I would have jumped on and the dead fish. But when I jumped, life's too short. It must happen all the time. You have to leave the bar immediately, but they let you walk through and go out. It was like the bog of eternal stench from Labyrinth. It was so bad. So many showers, clothes just thrown out. Pranav was nice and gave me his flannel because I was wearing a white t-shirt when I jumped. I was like, I don't even know how to replace this. I got to buy you a new shirt because there's no way to
Well,
get this smell
but you
out
were
of it.
flush with cash, so you were able to.
Yeah, it paid my rent for 2 months, my studio apartment.
That's incredible. Yes, and for those who don't know, this is the same like Chicago River that like the Dave Matthews Band unloaded their
Yep.
bus tank onto a passing boat of tourists. Like that's kind of what happened in that river. That's just where you dump all your crap.
Yeah.
And yes, Vogel took the leap into it. So unbelievable. And I feel redeemed. I can't wait to hold this over Marshall's head. All right. I think it's time for the apartment crawl, which is our speed round. Um, for those who remember, this was the tradition where IPers and a few chosen reps. I feel like it was at the time Michelle Ball, Brenda Cohn. We were on the short list of folks who got to come along. And we'd go over to people's places. We'd bring our red solo cups. I don't suppose you have one nearby, do you? There we go. Cheers. It's early in the morning when we're recording, so I've got iced coffee in mine. You got anything in yours? Is it empty?
Well, I have water in this one. I have my coffee in my tips mug. This is when you asked about training. We made our own training group outside of Pitt, and it was teaching IP or some shit, and it was our training class. Um,
Incredible.
I have graduated to a ceramic solo cup.
Oh wow. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
yes, good for you. Very environmentally friendly. Yes, it was a shock when I realized that these cups could not actually be recycled. Bree Keating Schofield at one point was working for the Dart Solo Corporation, which made these cups. And I remember she was like, "Yeah, we are trying to decide how we manage this." This was like during the time when everybody was greenwashing. At any rate, let's get to the cooler round. So this is our lightning round Q&A apartment crawl.
Do
Um,
you, before you get in the lightning round, do you want the history of how the apartment crawl started?
oh yeah, I forgot I'm talking to the historian. Yes, tell us.
So the apartment crawl started when I forget who it was, saw each other on the bus on the way to work in the morning, and probably 4 months in, we realized we all lived in East Lakeview, and we're like, we need to organize something so we can see each other's apartments. And that was the birth of the apartment crawl, was because we all realized we lived within 4 blocks of each other.
And this was not, was this tied to Burnett Breakfast or would this happen on a different day, a different
No,
night? Okay.
this would have been usually in the fall, and we would collect $20 from everybody, and we would go buy the booze and come up with a theme, and
Love it.
then it took on a life of its own.
Yeah. Probably, yeah. After Burnett Breakfast, nobody was probably standing in the evening to, well, that would be literally crawling to
Yeah.
apartments. Amazing. Okay. All right. So just quick answers here. Sort of first thing that comes to your head. The first one, hopefully is easy. I'm pretty sure you remember yours. What was your first AIM handle? AOL Instant Messenger.
The one I had, my first one as in grade school was ECV 2004, because I thought I was going to go to college and then 4 years of advanced degree as a 13-year-old. And then my work one was Liquid Asset.
Liquid Asset. Okay. And that's of course what we'll call the episode. So you're stuck with it now. It'll be in the engine algorithm. Who was your first boss at IP?
Wendy Barsky McGregor,
Have
and
to get
then
her
Jen
on.
Schreiber.
Who was your favorite client?
Oh, that's hard. I don't think I ever had bad clients because I had the triage. I had the fun clients. I had the fun teams at the clients who were doing new things. I didn't work on the big commerce accounts. I didn't work on network solutions. I didn't work on um, some of more of the performance driven hardcore clients. So yeah, I think I had the fun ones. I liked them all.
All right. Um, was there a client that you didn't work on that you wish you could have?
Sometimes the Molson Coors team would have been fun because they were just doing fun stuff. Probably would have got me to the Super Bowl. Um, but yeah, I was close enough to it that I got to be part of their meetings. But
Right
that was
on.
probably one that was the fun one.
Okay. And do you have a hot take on AI and advertising?
Yes, I think my biggest hot take is uh, how do I say it? I think the irony of companies rushing to show efficiencies, reducing headcount from a layoff perspective, are going to slow down the progression and the potential of what AI could be, and ultimately they're going to be behind where they need to be, because it's the point for me right now. More people need to be using it. More people need to be um, in it, and even after we use it, you're gonna need people to keep it honest and apply it. And there'll be functions that can run and talk to themselves, but I think that's the irony of procurement rushing to efficiencies that we're not ready yet to do at that rate. And I think there'll be a lot of cost to in a couple of years to rehire people to catch up to those that uh, kept enough people on to help help it.
Yeah,
So I
well
think
said.
that's my hot take.
Well said. Like, imagine if um, Burnett, Starcom had done that back in the digital days and said, okay, you know, digital's here and everything's just going digital. So we could just make a bunch of cuts and, and save some money as opposed to let's invest in this thing. Let's hire people to figure it out. Let's get good at it. And then we can, and then we can figure out how we reorganize ourselves.
Yeah.
Where would we be today? Certainly not on a show called Frap Rap that's reminiscing about the good old days. So, all right, well said. And speaking of Frap Rap, so for the close of the show, and you'll recall this was always the agreement. Everyone that would come to Cozy would get a freestyle rap where I'd get to work in whatever was kind of whatever they were wearing or working on at the time. And so for this one, I'm going to ask you to give me three keywords that I can turn into my freestyle. You got something you can write with there?
I do. I have my box of props.
Oh, I love it. Yes. Hold up some
And
props, and
I've
whatever
got
you hold up, I will incorporate into my freestyle. Okay, right off the bat. Let's get this going. Here we go. Here we go. I slip into the flow. I'm here with Erin Vogel, and we're keeping it local. She's got the big E, and I see it on the screen, and she knows who's the AG, and you know what I mean. What's next? What you got for me? Throw it up in the air. Everybody, put your hands, flip your hair. Oh my God, it's the pets.com sock puppet. You know I don't do it up. It's like a muppet. I put my hand inside and I let it ride. It says what I think, and I don't mind what I drink. It looks like a cup. A little higher, please. I can't see what that thing is. Oh my, I'm on my knees. It's the L90 mug. L9D in the place to be. It's the water cooler, and everybody can see. When I was back there with Keith Cappy, we would drink out of that for you and me. You got anything else? Let's keep it going, because I'm feeling the flow, and I gotta get it going. Yahoo Top Net. Oh my God, it's a print magazine, and I'm blowing my mind. Everything she's got in her bag of props, she's like Carrot Top, and the fun don't stop. Oh my goodness, is that a flip phone? I don't know. What brand is that? Is that the Rim BlackBerry? Tell me, yo, Motorola, the ESPN version, mobile ESPN. I better stop there because that's the end. Respect, Aaron Vogel, Liquid Asset. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. Appreciate you coming on. Cheers to you. Cheers to 27 or 26
yep.
years. Where are we at as of today?
20, 26 and an internship 27.
27 years. Incredible. Thanks for coming on, Frap Rap. Appreciate you. And we'll see you on the next show, everyone.
You're listening to the Mediaocean Podcast Network. For more of our shows, visit www.mediaocean.com/podcasts.
All right, special bonus clip. This is the after episode. Aaron, you're gonna have to help me think of like a good name for what we call like the bloopers of Frap Rap. But we were just chatting, and you said you had a memory of the first time you met me.
Yeah, the tall, skinny young guy that was the eager to come in. One of the very first memories in realizing that you were shameless, nothing could embarrass you. Hence the just breaking into freestyle rap in the middle of people you met for the first time. You had a hemorrhoid pillow hanging from your arm, and you just put it on
Little
your arm.
donut, right? It was a
Yep.
donut. Yeah.
And you walked around. You're like, yeah, I just need to sit on this for a while, and we started talking, and
Didn't I
you're
have you? Did I have you sign it? Didn't I have people signing them? It was
probably,
like
or
I
maybe you
treated it
brought
like
it
a
when you were,
cast.
yeah,
Yeah, I had
yeah.
people like sign it.
And you're like, no, I'm not missing meetings. I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna sit on my hemorrhoid pillow in front of everyone and tell them about it. And it wasn't necessarily for hemorrhoids, but you had to sit on it. And then
They'd
you went
had a
into the
surgery. I had just started dating Lisa at the time, who's now my wife, for those that
yeah
don't know. And I remember having a pain in my tailbone, and I had to have her like check it out. And she looked at it. She's like, "Oh, like you need to go get that looked at." And it's just it was a long story. Something I had to, get kind of lasered off, but then I couldn't really sit. So,
yeah
yeah, I had the and she's still with me. So I guess
yeah
that ended well.
the fact that anyone's spouses with them after experience apartment crawls. And then you had told us, because your dad was a doctor,
Right?
you went into our life lesson of if you have moles on your hands or feet, go get them checked because you need them removed because those are really
This was in
bad.
that same. This is me
Yep.
giving medical
I was like,
advice.
you are
Okay.
now giving us like go get it checked out lectures at 23,
Well,
22 years old.
I hopefully I specified it's only in certain places, right? If it's like in the middle of your hand, like that's a danger zone. I actually had one here that was removed. Like there's certain parts, so it's not like well, certainly anywhere on your body you should get it checked out, but certain areas of your body are more concerned than others. I'm not sure if I like whiteboarded that out for you in the meeting or.
But that, yeah, see, stuff sticks with you for 25 years.
That is wild. That does sound like I definitely remember the hemorrhoid pill. I don't remember telling you about the moles, but that probably is something I was going around espousing. This was, at the time we all got our medical advice from like drcoop.com. Remember that? That was actually a
Oh,
site we repped at L90. Uh,
we'd ask Jeeves.
yeah, Ask Jeeves. And then, of course, we just started Googling everything. I'm glad you survived.